Welcome back to our channel, where we unpack the biggest stories in finance and global markets. In this video, we're diving into why Trump tariffs crashed stock markets worldwide. As of April 6, 2025, stock markets across the globe have taken a massive hit, and the finger is pointing squarely at US President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff policies announced earlier this week. Let's break down what happened, why it triggered a crash, and what it means for investors. On April 2, 2025, Trump unveiled what's being called a Liberation Day tariff plan from the White House Rose Garden. It's a bold move, a baseline 10% tariff on all US imports, steeper levies like 34% on China, 20% on the EU, and up to 50% on countries like Vietnam. These tariffs kicked in on April 5th, targeting everything from cars to electronics. Trump pitched it as a way to bring jobs back to America and fix trade imbalances, claiming, "The markets are going to boom." But within days, the opposite happened. Global stock markets plummeted. The S&P 500 dropped 4.8% on April 3rd, its worst day since June 2020, wiping out $2.4 trillion in value, per Reuters. The Nasdaq fell nearly 6%, and the Dow shed over 1,600 points. Europe's Stoxx 600 sank 2.6%. Japan's Nikkei lost 2.8%, and losses rippled through Asia. By April 4th, the carnage deepened, with the S&P 500 losing $5 trillion over 2 days, per Reuters, marking a record crash. Why did this happen? It's a mix of economic fears, investor panic, and a brewing trade war. First, tariffs jack up costs. A 10% levy on all imports means US companies and consumers face higher prices for goods. Think iPhones from China or cars from Japan. The Tax Foundation estimates this could act like a $1.8 trillion tax hike on Americans, slashing imports by $900 billion in 2025. That's a massive hit to global supply chains. Companies like Apple, which saw its stock dive 9% per Forbes, rely heavily on overseas production. Higher costs could shrink their profits, spooking investors and sparking a sell-off. Second, retaliation kicked in fast. According to Reuters, China fired back with a 34% tariff on US goods on April 4th, escalating tensions. The EU, facing a 20% levy, is prepping countermeasures like tariffs on US jeans and Harley-Davidsons, per The Guardian. Canada's threatened a 25% tax on US vehicles. This tit-for-tat risks a full-blown trade war, reminiscent of the 1930s Smoot-Hawley tariffs that deepened the Great Depression. Investors hate uncertainty, and the fear of a tariff spiral of doom, as one analyst called it, sent markets into freefall. Third, it's about growth, or the lack of it. Oxford Economics warns these tariffs could push global growth to its lowest since 2008, outside the pandemic years. The World Trade Organization predicts a 1% drop in global trade volumes for 2025. A slowing world economy hits everyone. US exporters like Boeing, down 10% per CNBC, face shrinking markets, while emerging economies brace for a turning point, per Reuters. JP Morgan now sees a 60% chance of a global recession by year-end, up from 40%. That's a red flag for stock markets built on growth expectations. Investor sentiment flipped overnight. Before this, Wall Street was riding high on Trump's pro-growth promises, tax cuts, deregulation, lifting the S&P 500 to records in 2024. However, the tariff shock erased those gains, with the index down 12% from its February peak, per Reuters. According to Forbes, hedge funds dumped $40 billion in stocks, rushing to safe havens like bonds and gold, which hit $3,128 an ounce. The CBOE Volatility Index, Wall Street's fear gauge, spiked to levels not seen since 2020, signaling panic. Trump's sticking to his guns, saying on April 4th, "My policies will never change," per the Washington Post. But the fallout's undeniable. US households, where 60% own stocks, per the Federal Reserve, are watching retirement savings evaporate. According to NBC News, companies like Stellantis laid off 900 workers, blaming tariffs. Economists warn of stagflation, low growth, high inflation ahead. So why did Trump's tariffs crash stock markets worldwide? They hiked costs, sparked retaliation, and threatened global growth, shattering investor confidence. It's a high-stakes gamble that's backfired so far, turning Trump's boom into a bust. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown clarified the chaos, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more market insights. Drop your thoughts. Will Trump back off, or are we in for more turbulence? Leave a comment below. Until next time, stay sharp and invest wisely.